afternoon and early evening in some places. This is Guess Who's Coming to Kansas City, MC Richardson, your host and moderator. We have a wrap-up show of what took place of the oldest black political organization in the country. We had a combination where normally two cities are competitive against one another, but today it's all blues. Like the Sorrells used to say, it's a blue holiday, and hopefully one of my former bosses, Bergen Fisher, said, shouldn't everything be blue? That's what we want to happen, not only in the primary, but also in the general. We'd like to welcome the president of the Freedom Incorporated, Mr. Rodney Bland. Good afternoon, Mr. Bland.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Tell us what happened. How many people? I understand you were sold out, wasn't you? And we want to know what support the people of St. Louis brought to the table. I know you had the mayor of St. Louis, but you just kind of give us a wrap up, and we'll go from there. Okay?
Well, I will tell you that the event was a success. We had over 255 guests. The Honorable Mayor Quentin Lucas was in attendance. Council people Robinson, Shields, O'Neill, Boo, Andre Boo, and I think there might have been one or two that missed my scope. We had the county executive Frank White. We had Ron Finley. And we had other county elected officials in attendance. We had Trudy Valentine, U.S. Senate candidate, recognized for her hard work she's doing. We had Representative Mark Sharp, Representative Mike Johnson, Representative Ashley Van Manla, Representative Rich Brown, and Annette Turnbull, and from the St. Louis side, we had Representative Senator Carla May, Representative Lashika Bosley. We had some other senators from St. Louis side. We had the Honorable Mayor Tashara Jones. Her father was with her, Vervis Jones. And we had former comptroller of St. Louis. We had St. Louis County Executive Sam Page. We had Missouri Democratic Party was in attendance. And the county, Missouri Democratic Party's chairman, and Randy Dunn, the executive director. Let's see. We had a number of guests that were also in attendance. UAW, AFL-CIO, Local 264, the heavy contractors, the laborers, HEU, Local 500 members, firefighters, Local 42, JCDC, which is Jackson County Democratic Committee. We had the House, the HDCC, which is the House Democratic Caucus Committee. We had former presidents of Freedom Inc., Mark Bryant and Archie Welch were in attendance. We had a number of folks that were there as supporters, and I'm probably missing one or two different organizations. But to say the least, we had 250 plus people in 260. The program was shared and delivered by Honorable Mayor Quentin Lucas gave a few speech points. Honorable Mayor Tashara Jones gave a speech, which was very dynamic and impacting for our community. And we had, as guest speaker, we had Representative U.S. Congress Alan Green out of Texas, the 9th District of Texas. And he gave an impactful, powerful speech highlighting the Crown Launch League, talking about the issues that are going to impact our community, which one of them was reparations and the House Bill 916. So he talked about a lot of different programs that are impacting our community, and not for us to forget that Juneteenth is a.
Let's do this for the benefit of first-time listeners. A lot of people say, "Who is Freedom? What are they doing?" Kind of give us kind of a summary of our Freedom, the oldest black political organization in the nation.
We are that. We celebrate our 60th anniversary, and Freedom Inc. is a PAC, Missouri PAC, state PAC, and we are a continuing committee. We have dual roles, and now we have a fourth. We help support the development of a 501c4, which is Forward Foundation. So all of these are congruent to each other by statute, and but Freedom is the lead on we can endorse and we can help folks get elected to office or issues become successful. We've been doing it for 60 years, and in our community, we have about 12 wards. We oversee probably about 40,000 voters. And we are currently engaged in elections right now, the county, state, and statewide and Congress.
Okay, we're also joined by Mr. Fowlkes, who's the president of the Missouri Black Chamber of Commerce, and I'm in Kansas City, ours in St. Louis, and he's going to join us. He has a lot of questions, I'm quite sure, that he want to ask you, and we together, maybe we can come together for once, because like I said, heretofore, it's been like a competition between the two cities. Mr. Fowlkes?
Well, first of all, okay, I never consider us to have a competitive competition with Kansas City. I think that's been one of the main problems over years that's been a misnomer. When I started in the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, I did some research and found that in the past that chambers was unable to be successful, mainly because they had a competition going on. But the problem that blacks have in Kansas City, blacks have in St. Louis and around the state are all the same. So so it's there's nothing to compete against each other for. Because neither one of us have anything that we try to take from each other. And we try to work together as a family, as a team. So I like to get that part up first, okay? So I just consider us all brothers. So, like anybody else, we in this battle together. Or to take an adage and a friend of mine told me, we are all foxhole buddies. It means that, we live and die together, So I like that clear first of all. But I'm happy to hear that you had a well-located affair, and I think it seems as though that both sides of the state was well represented. And I know for one that Shara's father, being that Reverend Jones, he had to have been a very, very, very proud father, to have her, the daughter being the mayor. And I know both of them very well, watch them grow up, She's very close to my niece, who's now passed on. And I went with her, years ago also. But having said that, I think St. Louis and Kansas City right now are working together because we have two mayors They may not be competing with each other. They be working hand in hand because they have very much been successful around the country. Most recently, they were back to the White House to a bill signing, that was taking place already, dealing with gun violence, in major cities, not just major, but gun violence as a whole. It was something they had worked very hard to get done. And that's been a hard fought, appeal for years. Gun violence has been a major problem in the whole country. And I think to see two young black leaders come together, hand in hand, to work together, very much commendable, for our state. And so I'm very proud for what Mr. Bland said was a beautiful affair, and I commend him on 60 years of doing something that is, sometimes people have problems being together a year, Mr. Bland, you already know, but for 60 years, I commend you and your organization on getting that done, and I look forward to working with you guys going into the future because we all have issues together, and I just commend you. And I will say this much to just to listen to the list of people you said were intended black was who of all politicians in one place, sitting together and around the table breaking bread. It also means that breaking bread together I always found kind of hard to be mad at somebody. So I think that was a very nice. What did you have your affair at?
Yeah, it's held at the Hotel Kansas City, 1228 Baltimore Avenue in Kansas, Missouri. I think you're right. There is an effort now more than before on the collaboration of unified interests in statewide Missouri politics, and how do we as cities collaborate, coordinate, and participate in how we adjudicate the laws in the state of Missouri that benefit black folks, including gun laws, laws that have jury selection and other issues that impact our St. Louis City and urban core and Kansas City, Missouri urban core. And when I think about that, I think about, currently House Bill 1878 that been signed by the governor, and that will be in force starting August 28th, because that voting rights bill becomes another restrictive measure to restricting how black folks vote in the future. And it's very concerning. I know as the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, and the mayor of St. Louis are both engaging in conversations outside City Hall. What is measure?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things,
Hello?
Yes, that's one of the things that I do.
Hello?
Oh, we're here. Just go ahead and talk.
Okay, that I have done over the years is we come to Jeff City, and we have had groups from Kansas City come in where we had a lobby day in Kansas City, where we're there trying to lobby, for bills, and most times, we are all there on the same issues, and I think the fact that we are there as a collaborative now is one. That means we cannot be divided, because whatever takes place here is going to affect you in Kansas City. And I think right now, unfortunately, we have, I'm not sure all the time, anything that's bad news, Kansas City, anything that's bad news, Missouri is at the top of the list. Anything that's good news, we get at the bottom of the list. And I know right now, we're at the top of the list when it comes to crime in major cities. So that's something that we need to fight together as a team, and teams though our mayors take the bull by the horns, okay, and work with them, and we need to work with them ourselves. I know in our legislative sessions in Jeff City that I know that the Black caucuses there have been very well, organized, and they are working together. So I think right now the more that we work together as a team, And as a team, as a family, I prefer to say, as a family, that's when you're more inclusive than being a team member. Because we eat at the same table, and drinking the same food. Drinking the same Kool-Aid or ice, wine, or what you want to do. And so we gotta kind of work together. Because if we too many times blacks have been divided in our country, and that means we never ever get in a place beyond fighting with each other. I think you would agree on that, and I think very much you and your organization are working toward making that collaborative effort stuff a reality.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rodney.
I was going to just say, you're absolutely right. The problem we have is that in Jeff City, the caucus and the Black Caucus represent a very small minority of the super controlled House or Senate majority, and the Republicans are aiming always at the urban core. And so when you start putting in restrictive measures to further restrict people from voting, or in this case, registering to vote, if you can't register to vote, then you can't get out to vote, then you lose the power of the vote.
Yes.
And I will tell you that the voters, the Missouri House and Senate Republicans are very, Jay Ashcroft, Secretary of State, is very actively pursuing measures to constrict and control and penalize voter registration efforts, and eventually they'll come after the Voting Rights Act. And if we don't wake up and pay attention and stop being activists arguing a different cause and look to reality that if we're going to look up in 10, 20 years, and our grandchildren, children won't be able to vote. Or they'll have enough restrictive covenants and laws, like the 1878, House of 1878. If you register after August 28th of 2022, if you register more than 10 people, if Rodney Bland goes out and registers as a deputy registrar, I've had classes and training through the Kansas Election Board, I go out and I register 10 people, 10 plus 1, without registering at the Secretary of State's office in Jeff City, I can be subject to fines, penalties, including which could be charged with felony and lose my right to vote by being penalized by this vote. And
now, Brad, let me ask you a question, okay? And this not being friendly, does that make any sense to you?
What's that?
Does that make any sense to you?
No.
Okay. I mean, that is just plain on crazy. Because the average person, when you are registered people to vote, and trying to get in contact with the Secretary of State's office, which is located in Jeff City, I'm in St. Louis, you're in Kansas City. That's breaking up your whole rhythm, okay? What you actually doing?
Right.
And I think people will not be aware again, because these are some of the stupid laws that are coming together by Republicans, okay, trying to hinder black folk. Because you can register 10 people, you can start by one church or one office someplace.
I would tell you that that's the madness of that method, is to continue to focus on the urban core of St. Louis, Kansas City, and separate the black and brown folks from the folks who are in lower class, trailers and whatnot in the rural communities, and focus their energies on restrictive covenants for voter registration rights. Because if you do enough of that, and you curtail the ability for folks to register people, you will impact them in the future on how they're able to vote and get the vote out.
If you just tune in, you listen to a very special wrap-up broadcast of Freedom Incorporated, who just held a successful 60th anniversary of the group, and we're talking to Mr. Fowlkes, who's a talk show host in St. Louis. He's also president of the Missouri Black Chamber of Commerce, and Mr. Rodney Bland. The Bland seem to be a pretty prominent name here. I think they came from that potato county in Missouri years ago. But on the same token, Mr. Rodney Bland is now the president of Freedom Inc. And we had our show last week where we talked to the state representative of the 78th district in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And what happened is gerrymandering and all that. He has two white Republicans running, and it's true not only in Jeff City, Kansas City, St. Louis, and other cities throughout the United States that black folks just don't get out and vote, whether they register or not. Some believe that things going to happen and their vote don't count. Both of you can elaborate on it. My name is MC Richardson.
Well, MC, I think Rodney would agree that that's another misnomer, okay? The younger generation right now are getting out and voting. And the older people right now are getting out and voting. Because one of the things for us, all the ages now, is there people become more aware of the benefits that we receive, and that we actually spending our money, the government is spending our money. And I just had to come back to what Rodney just said. We're talking about was again that this new law just goes along with other laws that have been passed around the state, around the country, I say, and almost every in which it sounds like it's illegal, okay, and and probably should have been challenged. It probably will be challenged because the average organizer who go to a church, register 10 people in a half an hour. Am I right, Rodney?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And I would somehow, in some way, turn a different corner on the question of young folk. What we're finding is that folks who are 50 years of age to 85 years of age are a solid core vote.
Yeah.
Black women make up the majority of the Democratic parties in Kansas City and St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
They vote two times more than the average black male.
Yeah.
The Republicans have done a successful job of recruiting black males between the ages of 25 to 35. And they are, you had almost 12% of black men voting for Trump and being a Trumpster, and they have no idea that he's aiming their guns at them. And but they were voting on some issues that were just bizarre. But in saying that, what I've learned is that people on these platforms of Instagram and Facebook and all these other platforms, they put all this stuff out there in the atmosphere, but they are not voting. And there's a difference between activism and voting. Articulating the two differences and being able to go and actually cast a vote of your activism is a measure we all try to achieve. The problem we have is that young black men and women, brown and black young men and women under the age of 35 don't see the need to go vote. And And then you got a class of folks that are welfare recipients, housing voucher recipients, child daycare voucher recipients, school lunch voucher recipients, and they don't vote. No, they think they're voting in a presidential election for Obama or Biden is a big thing. It isn't. It is equally as important that people vote from the age of 18 to 85. They go vote because it is a must that they exercise the right to vote. People have died and hung, burned, and staked to give our young folks a right to vote. And they could care less because they do not vote on these platforms. They argue it. They argue the issues, and most times wrong, but and they get it right sometimes. But I would tell you that it is a concerning effort because that generation is not voting consistently. And, we tried every measure we could to engage them, but the lifeblood of some of these folks are the folks, I said, 50, 85, who vote every election, every other election, and they vote local elections. That's why we spend a lot of time trying to advance our candidates locally. It costs a lot of money to advance a marketing strategy that will allow people to go vote. But, registering people to vote is one thing. GOTV, getting out to vote, is a whole different step.
Rodney, another thing that's taking place this year, it takes place every 10 years on redistricting. I know here in St. Louis, there are a lot of the black candidates against each other, which again kind of confuses the situation. But at the same time, it's meant, to minimize what we're doing, which is create confusion. And I know that here in St. Louis, we have a lot of that taking place, which is taking place around the state. But also, I had a couple of guests here on my program, and one of the people was a gentleman from his son was here in Bourbon, Missouri, and one of the things that was discussed there was that that is one of the Ku Klux Klan's hotbeds in our state, and that the way his son was murdered, and how he got no cooperation from no form of government whatsoever. So in the area there, because they all were probably member of the same lodge or member of the same group that was meant to hold black folks down. And actually, unfortunately, the gentleman that killed the black guy was the next door neighbor. And he walking free right now, and then we prosecuted. So right now, these crimes, against black people, this crime, with the guns and stuff, is something that continues to be a problem in our neighborhoods, more so than ever before, because these are some gun laws that were passed by, our super majority in the House and Senate were Republican. And I think right now, the last election, cycle that we had, that I know in the Senate we had 33 members of the Senate, and I think we had maybe only less than 10 black representatives in the Senate. So that's why now any bill that's going to be passed, like now the law that just was passed here for voting rights, that's against voting rights, why it was passed. Probably very few people right now know that law is a law. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
But
I would tell you that with the Roe versus Wade, if people are not paying attention to the underlying efforts the Republicans are doing. Roe versus Wade took down a 50-year decision that impacted the lives of women and babies. And they did that because they argued that protecting the right of white women, particularly to make sure they have babies and not abort babies, because the black-brown populations are overtaking the other communities, and they're trying to make sure that does not happen. Because, and I think what folks got to pay attention to that this is the first of a series of efforts to roll back, and promulgate the laws to defeat in the houses of go from federal rulings and federal state laws to state rights laws. And for the population listening to this broadcast, I would tell you, just go back and Google state rights. The 60s. And when they did the states' rights had more controlling than the federal laws. And that's when the federal government said, enough's enough. We're going to change the state rights laws and enforce the federal laws. And I'm going to tell you that down the road, they're going to come after the LGBTQ plus community, the same-sex marriage community, and then that will lead to women's rights and the suffrage movement rights of women, and restrict them from having voter protection laws. And who's next? Civil rights laws. And that's of 1965 and the Voting Rights Act.
Yes.
Those are the intended targets 10 years down the road. And we're not paying attention and watching the tea leaves of the federal laws rejection. Just watch the legislature of Missouri next session when they get ready to promote more laws, more restrictive covenants on voter rights protections, voter rights laws, and election laws. And they may even try to turn around and turn back the popular vote law, and it's going to be 1962 all over again.
And also, Rodney, another thing that people need to watch, Republicans in the most recent years have now started to organize and starting out right now with school districts, the board of education, controlling the students there, what goes there. They also have started fighting a lot of in Missouri. We have a lot of pride districts, places like that now are being organized. So, and those small groups, okay, is the start of them starting over the school board and taking that's before they get there, rolling over, going to the city councils, the wards or whatever you want to call it there. And this is something that's taking place very discreetly, but it's going to have a major effect on what our kids are being taught. And if you can't teach civic things in school, you never learn. Because right now, politics is one of those things that it used to be discussed in schools. Well, they don't want you to discuss that in school anymore, because it can give you an advantage of teaching the kids, and kids being taught that they do have rights early on. Years ago in classes, schools have civic stuff like that. Well, those classes also been taken out of the schools. So that's why our rights are being attacked. No earlier path now than they have been in the past.
Yep, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, and it's getting worse.
I mean, you had in Jeff City last session, Republicans, I can't remember the Republican name, out of rural Missouri, had never been on a bus in his life in Kansas City, St. Louis else. But he wanted to structure a law that would allow guns on buses in schools, in churches, and grocery stores. It was amazing. And we had a Republican down there in Jeff City that was had a law. He could take his 3,000-pound vehicle plus, and if there's a protest in the middle of the street, he can go and run over the protesters without being charged for vehicular manslaughter or assault, because the law would give him the right to, because of his fearfulness of the protesters, he could mow them down with his car and not be subject to any law or penalty. So, we're not paying attention because folks are not voting their pocketbooks or their interests. We're in the black community in Kansas City and St. Louis, but most concentrated, we're not voting at all, period. That's the thing.
Because right now, I think something that you and I both, we all in the state of Missouri should agree on, that healthcare has been an issue that affects everybody. I don't care who you are, and we have had a problem with that the people voted several times to give healthcare, to have that done for our state, and the legislator have turned against the will of the people on several occasions, and they still have yet to fund that for something that was voted on at least almost 7, 8 years ago. And then they tell you, well, if there's a gun issue, you need to have it's a mental health issue. Well, I don't know about you in Kansas City, okay, but if you don't have insurance, how can you talk about having getting some medical health care for mental health care?
Well, before Mr. Bland answered that, on Al Sharpton's show today, they had the American Nurses Association, where they admitted that the racism and the things that have been popping, they apologized to women of color, Black Nurses Association, Hispanic Nurses Association, how things have just happened over the years. The racist, the being prejudiced, and like they state, they apologize to those people. We're talking about the nurses, we're talking about the profession. That's just a start that we were talking about the nurses, but then we want to get into the important role of the Secretary of State and what's coming up this August the 2nd. And then prior to that, a good friend of all ours, and I mentioned his name last week, Alan Wheat. I was at a club called Kathleen, and Rodney should remember that club. Well, I know they had Charles Hasley, they had Philip Curls, and some others, and Cleaver wanted to run for the congressional seat. And we said, since Alan Wheat was so good, didn't have too many absentees, let me make sure, absence from Jeff City when he was a state rep, would be the best qualified person. And so I called him, and he called me that next morning, and then Tommy Bolin, Richard Bolin's wife, they got behind him, and he became the first Black in a long time for Congress. Then he went on to become a candidate to be the first Black U.S. Senate from the state of Missouri. And we have not had any Blacks to win a statewide office. That'll lead us into both Rodney, you and let's say about the Black woman that's running for the U.S. Senate seat.
Man, she's a guest on my show today. You talk about Miss Coffee Wright. She ran previously against Josh Hawley, and we all know Anyway, he's an embarrassment to our state, in my opinion. But right now she's running against, this is about a field about 11 or more people that's campaigning for that seat. And again, she's with Kansas City. Most recently, she got endorsed in Kansas City by the Kansas City Hall. They endorsed her up there. And so she's traveling the state. As a matter of fact, she'll be down in Hayti area very soon, and I'll be working with her down there. Trying to help her. Knock on some doors and get some people to come out and listen to her message. But again, and she said she's living the issues that people saying that they want to vote for. That's been her life. But she's been poor. But like she gave an example about this Valentine that she was and then she was a nurse. Okay, but how long was she a nurse? I mean, and I think in the same picture, they were there at the same event that Miss Valentine came behind her and was using her same remarks, okay, in her speech. So again, a lot of times, we blacks are always on the forefront, and I told her, people copy what we do, because a lot of times blacks, have great ideas, and we've always been, the person supporting other people. So it's time for us now to have a seat at the table.
Well, I hear what you're saying, brother. But politics have some real practical theories.
Yes.
And I would say to you that there are 11 candidates for U.S. Senate.
Yes.
Freedom interviewed 9 of them.
Mm-hmm.
There are 5 African Americans in that Senate race. What I would say to you is that, going back to what MC said earlier, Alan Wheat ran against John Ashcroft in 1982.
Yes.
And I will tell you that Alan Wheat didn't have a snowball chance in hell. A mountain hit a snowball in 1982. And all Ashcroft did back then was they called him the singing preacher, because he was a preacher, politician, and he sung in most of his rallies.
Yes.
And he's one of the most conservative Republicans there is. This current race, you have a choice of Trudy Valentine or Lucas Kuntz. They are the 2 leading numbers by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell you that the problem with a U.S. Senate run statewide, you have to have probably $20 million to impact the voters in the state, in commercials and counties. There are 114 counties in Missouri. Only about 11 to 12 are still considered Democratic counties, and about 2 or 3 leaning conservatively toward those counties, Democratic. There are a lot of yellow Democrats. We call Democrats who are Republican voting, but they call them yellow Democrats. And,
okay. Before y'all answer that, I always said the Kansas City Call endorsed the black lady running for U.S. Senate. Freedom has endorsement too. What is endorsement, and how? What does that mean? How powerful is an endorsement? A lot of people give political organizations X amount of dollars for them to endorse them or support them. So first, tell us, what is an endorsement, and how important is it, and what does it mean?
Let's be clear. Being did not endorse the African American woman. I don't know her name. Probably right. We endorsed Eric Weston endorsed Miss Wright. We did not. we endorse Trudy Valentine. Now, here's why. You look at the numbers that are polling right now, and these pollers do a sophisticated job of polling the average voters in demographics across the state. And what they're saying is that Eric Greitens is going to win the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate. The only thing that separates Eric Greitens from Mr. Coons is in some ways the practical theories of them being two men.
Right.
Trudy being a nurse and also having some experience in some areas of politics represents a change and change guard. With all of the issues being attacked by women, I think, and predictably, women are going to come out very heavily against men on voting because their protected rights, their daughters, their children, their grandchildren are stable as females. And so I think there's going to be a real support for a woman, and the fact that she can put on the table $20 million or more and throughout the community. Endorsements mean that political PACs, organizations that have a clustered number of outreaches can get their marketing message out by tabloids, by mail. I mean, the mail in Kansas City, Missouri, if you try to mail in Kansas City, Missouri, hit 45,000 households, that will cost you about $72,000 for one mailing in Kansas City. If you look at the county, Jackson County, the mail to all the households, there are 700,000 people in the Jackson County. And you say you want another 25,000 houses in Jackson County. They're going to cost you about $58,000 just to mail, postage, print, the marketing materials and mail in the mailbox. These campaigns, when you think about 114 counties, 58, 60 times 114 counties to reach people and populations, a lot of money. They include radio, and they include officers, staffers, canvassers, poll workers, all of those instruments that come with the endorsement of a candidate. I mean, to advertise in the Kansas City Globe in Carl for a full page is about $4,500 for one advertisement. You know, that's why the restrictive covenants that the Republicans keep putting on these different voting rights areas gives them more control, because people can't raise money.
Rodney, I agree with you that Ms. Valentine will be a better candidate. I agree with you, but I think, and I'm not sure you're thinking, is that this year Republicans eliminated so many people, especially what's coming right now after what's taking place right now with the situation in the hearings that we're watching on TV, what's taking place with the taking away of the women's rights, for the choose for their bodies. I think, for one, that Trudy Valentine will be the person that will beat any Republican that they put out there, because most of them right now are running commercials that are very, very much violent. So I share what you just said, okay, about the numbers, okay, and how much the cost would be. Because you give a good example of Ms. Bush, so long a campaign over a couple $1 million. So I think it takes money to win, and I would agree that she probably will be the candidate that will be But other person, I gave him this right opportunity to be voice, hear a voice, okay. But I think the person that will win the state next Tennessee will be Miss Valentine.
Well, I don't doubt it.
As a matter of fact, I'm predicting that this year that the Democrats are going to take over, to maintain the House and the Senate, mainly because of the hot button issues. Because anytime you get a lot of white women upset, as they presently are right now about the abortion issue, and as people are finding out more and more about, okay, how the government trying to be overthrown by former President Donald Trump. That there are a lot of people, and the fact that the Republicans right now are being very quiet. None of the Republicans come out and criticize Donald Trump. These hearings, this is telling so much, and not one has stepped to the plate and said, "Hey, I made a mistake." And that's on constant until November. And also, one other thing, Glenn, the fact that 18 years old on this gun right bills also, these young people right now who had their friends killed in previously shootings now, they are now 18 and don't need to vote. Okay, so they're going to come out and vote also. So I think the Republicans are having a rude awakening.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, but I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see August 2nd. If women lead the Democratic Party in many of these races that have been tested across Kansas City, St. Louis, and in statewide. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Yeah, I am too. I'm looking forward to it, and I ran campaigns before, and like I said, you do the statistics, and right now, Biden, okay, and right now, of course, our Attorney General Smith, there's so many people with all these different lawsuits, and some of the bills that he pushed through when he was in the legislature is coming out back to bite him in the butt.
Oh yeah.
And rightfully so.
And nobody wants another Holly.
No, we don't. And that's why I said to you already that John Ashcroft, I said on my show, that he brought us Clarence Thomas, he brought us Josh Hawley. Now he want to bring us another candidate, okay? And I think people are not going to go for that.
No, I think the Republicans, the biggest group of supporters, Eric Greitman, is suburban women, educated suburban women, and evangelicals.
I hate to do this, folks, but I wanted to let you know it's 5:55.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But right now, I think, Mr. Land, these are the things right now, okay, that more so than ever before, I'm in St. Louis and you're in Kansas City, we all in agreement, okay, on certain things that we know going to benefit our state. And that means we need a female to go up against all this testosterone that's out there in the men right there.
And we need a leader.
Yeah.
And women lead.
In most houses.
Yep. Every house.
Yeah, I know in my house. Yeah, so that's why I said that's why I said I am so encouraged, okay, by my Missouri here in Converse, and I'm at the service over there. He was trying to tell me about how my chambers, how chambers take money. Well, our chambers give back money to our people, our members. They benefit from what we give them. We're trying to help business become successful, and it's about time they become successful. And we want to be successful. And it's our time right now to be successful.
Oh, yeah.
You know what, Mr. Scott just got to tell us about our time, and we got this very important primary election coming up on August. So we want the people to know, the listeners, and we need to add more listeners and more sponsors to all our programs. You know, it seems that people who have sufficient amount of funds, they get across on television. So most people view it, even though it might be for a minute or whatever, it seems to be watched. But the faster way of communication, it seems to be radio. We try, and our newspapers. So what do you guys have to say on that before we have to close out? But make sure that people know how to reach you. Now, I know that Freedom Inc. and the churches and what have you, they provide free transportation to get the people to the polls.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rodney. Go ahead.
816-483-8683. Vote is Freedom Inc.'s number to ride to the polls. The second of the day, candidates that we are supporting are Free Valentine, U.S. Senate, Congressman Cleaver, Frank White, Megan Marshall, Donna Payton, Manny Mabaka, Vanessa Husky, and Jerron McGee, Yolanda Young, the representative, and assortment of other folks in our community running for office.
Well, my name is Aaron Folks from Missouri Chamber of Commerce. We as a nonprofit cannot endorse anyone because of our charter. But if anyone want to get in contact with me, get on the MC Richardson, and he always can contact us. 24 hours a day, we on the phone with each other. But again, please, get a friend. We can encourage you to go out and vote, though. Please do that.
Okay, my name is MC Richardson, not only the host and moderator of Guest System in Kansas City, but also the chairman, the CEO and the founder of the United Minority Media Association. And on September the 16th and the 17th at the Embassy Suite Hotel in Kansas City, we're going to have our Midwest Southeast Regional Conference. And just call me, probably a faster way of communicating with me is just call me on my mobile phone of 816-694-2273. And how can both of you gentlemen and your organization be contacted?
Bonnie Bland, Freedom Inc. 816-510-5714.
Well, again, if you want to contact me, Mr. Richardson is the fastest way. And also, we want to thank you, MC. Not saying it, but I'm going to say it out loud for you. Human is the oldest black legal association in the whole country also. I want to commend you and your organization, our organization, I should say, on the job we have done and continue to push forward.
Okay, this is not political, your check's in the mail. Thank you once again, and Scott, thank you for telling us that we wouldn't overrun the time, so you have to cut us off before. So be sure to tune in. Hopefully, we will have, we invited Tal Buford of Memphis, Tennessee. He was president of the Douglas State Bank here in Kansas City, and also the Freedom Bank that was established by Jackie Robinson. Hopefully, we'll get Mr. Buford, who now lives in Germantown, Tennessee, to be our guest next week. Do you guys have very special? You got to tell the people what time to tune in on your show.
Oh, well, you can listen to us every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that's lunch with the Missouri Chamber of Commerce on Ferguson, USA, HotDogRadio.com. I always say life is good, and please wear your face mask.
Ira, you're also being broadcast on Monday and Wednesday, same time.
Yeah, also Monday and Wednesdays also we have a program for those who miss us. We try to get the word out there, and also you can see us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and what else, Scott?
That's it.
And also you see Mr. Rodney Bland name I know on the advertising doing a newspaper. So remember that name. And then his mother, a good friend, was Mary Groves everyone on Potato Kingdom in Kansas. Thank you very much for tuning in, and hope that our Royals can't win, but we got a Chiefs game coming up very soon, so stay cool and make sure I guess that's a good point. Stay cool the way the climate's outside. So goodbye, and thank you for tuning in.
Life is good. It's where you